Three. Great Thursday. Welcome to King Connections Podcast. I'm your host, King, and today I'm honored and privileged to have Thomas Eckschmidt, did I say that correctly?
Perfect.
Joining me on the King Connections Podcast. So with that being said, thank you for joining me today, Thomas. How you doing today?
I'm very excited. We had a quick chat before, and I got just so energized for the opportunity to share here the space with you. There's so much we can do, and we have to invite people to do and wake up to the potential they have.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the ways I like to get things started is just with a generic question. I like to ask folks, what is your spiritual energy number? And what I mean by that is a number that kind of reflects your mood, your energy level, your spirit level. And so zero is life sucks, and then 10 is life is awesome. So what would you say you rate there with your number?
Well, I would say 58. That's my age. So that's where I'm standing. The
I
older
love
you
it.
get, the more exciting you get about life. And one of the things, you get to know so much stuff. And ultimately, you come to a conclusion that maybe one lifetime is not enough to
Yes.
all you can do and you should do. So that's an invitation because opportunities out there, and sometimes it's just next to us, and we need to wake up and pay attention. So my energy level is 58. I don't feel 58, but here I am, right?
I love it. I love it. And the reason I asked that question is because when I have meetings and I give my classes, I ask that question because I really want to know what the energy level of the people in the room. So if I get a lot of twos and threes, I ask those folks to leave the room, right? Because
Yeah.
there's nothing going to be creative, nothing's possible. They're going to be
Yes.
adversarial, and we won't be at our best selves. So thank you for indulging me with that question. Um,
Well, that I think this question is so powerful because sometimes the people around you even elevate you more. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
right?
Yes, yes. And I can tell by your energy, you're elevating me now. So
Uh,
this is definitely happening. Now, my first question at the interview is this: what do you see as your purpose in life?
um, you know, I had this is a big challenge, challenging how to express your purpose. And first, my first, I was kind of concerned if I express my purpose, I limit myself. But
Hmm,
ultimately, what it helps you once you express your purpose, and it's probably not the perfect one, it's not sometimes not even the exact purpose, but once you have an expression of your purpose, you actually manage to understand how far you deviate from that intention.
hmm.
And you improve it over time by understanding how you live according to that intention. So, my purpose today is to accelerate the upgrade of leadership and therefore upgrading their businesses so that we can create a more conscious business ecosystem, companies that actually promote well-being and promote caring of the whole environment and people. So this is, and I don't like the expression change because some people don't like the change. But if you talk about upgrade, I'm willing to upgrade,
Yes.
but maybe I'm not willing to change. So even the words you pick
Hmm.
actually help you and your intention to be have a stronger presence in what you're trying to accomplish.
I love that difference because you're absolutely right. Most people will fight change, especially if
Yes.
someone else is requesting them to change.
Yeah.
But how many people will actually push back on upgrade? I think everyone looks at upgrade as an improvement.
Yeah. You
So
go into a better place, right? When you upgrade, maybe there's
absolutely.
a there's some it's not a straight line, but you're going to get to a better place.
Yes, absolutely. Um, now, here's a key question I love to ask you, especially with your experience in the conscious capitalism movement, the books you've written, the work you've done. We use that term conscious leader quite a bit nowadays.
Mhm.
And I'm always curious how different people define conscious leader. So, how would you define a conscious leader?
Um, lately, I've been more towards a caring leader.
Hmm,
This is the expression that Simon Sinek uses when he talks about leadership. Because when you think all leaders are conscious at that level of knowledge, so I'm conscious of what I know. And some people are still conscious at the level of last century. They want to command and control. That's their consciousness. So I like to express leadership in a new way. And I like what Simon mentions is caring leadership, because that's what we do in the family. We care for each other. So if we pick family values and express that through the business, if we care for people, people will care for their suppliers, for our customers, for our environment, for our community, surrounding communities. So I like the idea of caring, because that expresses something much deeper, and it already expresses a much deeper intention towards everything around you when you really care, right? And
Absolutely.
you can notice when somebody's caring and when somebody's just commanding and controlling. That's not caring.
Exactly right. Actually, absolutely. And speaking of that, you are, I believe, the founder of a company called Conscious Business Journey. And I
Yes.
love that name, that
Mhm.
journey, right? Because I realized
Yes.
that for me, being a conscious leader to me is a journey, not a destination, right? It's
Yeah.
constantly making adjustments, having a true north. So my question would be twofold. Number one, what is the mission of Conscious Business Journey? And number two, what inspires you to create Conscious Business Journey?
Well, I like that you noticed, consciousness is a journey, because every time we have a chance to learn something, we expand consciousness.
Hmm.
So my invitation is, try to learn every day something, try to share what you learned. And so when I put together Conscious Business Journey, first is because I understand and I recognize that it's a journey, it's not a finish line. And the important thing is who you want to take with you on that journey. So those are the two elements. It's not about achieving the finish line. It's about the journey, and it's about who you're taking with you, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the purpose of my company is actually the expression of my own purpose. So what we do is, when I think about accelerating the upgrade of leadership, what I do is I train other people to do the same thing I do. So I certify consultants, I train board of directors, I certify board of directors, so they have the ability to make better decisions and influence the businesses they're leading, right? And also leadership programs, because if we change people, if we upgrade people, people upgrade their lives and upgrade their businesses. So Conscious Business Journey is actually a pure expression of my intention. So I use that. If I'm saying accelerating, if only I am doing this stuff, it has a specific speed. If I invite other people to do this, and today we have more than 800 consultants certified under the same
Wow.
methodology I teach in 21 countries. So now
Wow.
we're starting to connect them so that we present ourselves as a group, not as individuals everywhere. So that's the next level of accelerating the upgrade intention.
I love that. I love that. So my question along those lines would be the certification process. What is the requirements for a leader to get certified as a conscious leader or a conscious capitalist?
Well, we talk about certifying a conscious capitalist consultant,
Okay.
that understands those four principles and actually has the ability, with the tools we share and we teach, to help a company implement those. And my experience, I was an entrepreneur, and after leaving consulting business, I started my own business, and I recognized in myself that I was a conscious capitalist, conscious capitalist, because
Mm.
my decisions were to make something better, and helping the ecosystem, making my client happier, getting stronger suppliers to work with me. But I had no idea that a purpose would make a difference. We had a belief, it's not the same thing as a purpose. We had, recognized interdependence and all that stuff. But uh, ultimately, what we believe is that if the consultants have the same tools, and during the certification program, what we do, we pick a company and we apply those tools, so that each consultant throughout the 9 weeks of program, they have that narrative. They
Mm.
know actually how to do that in a business. And a business out there, let's pick, I don't know, let's look at Whole Foods, or let's look at Airbnb, and see where the decisions are good and where they're not so good, where the decisions could be better. And that allows each one that is going through the program understanding how to apply those tools. And ultimately, one tool connects to the next one, because you talk about purpose, but how do you express that purpose in the multiple directions or multiple stakeholder relationships you have? Sometimes the purpose is very oriented to the customer, but then you have to have a clear interpretation to employees, to suppliers, to communities, to environment, so that it makes sense. And
Yes.
how cultural values actually leverage your purpose, and ultimately how the expression of the leader, the expression, how they communicate, how they behave, influence their ecosystem. Ultimately, the leader is the example of success. So people will follow those actions, those behaviors, because they want to follow the leadership role, right? The
Abs-
leadership path.
Absolutely. The leader has to be authentic to those
Yes.
purposes so that
Yeah.
folks can want to follow.
Yeah.
Um, which brings me to my next question. I'm going to kind of frame this first. Now, one of the things that I do as a connector, I look at myself as a person who believes in building relationships and sees the value in collaborative effort. And I love Stephen R. Covey's talked about their interdependence activity. So, with that being said, as I said earlier, that so many people use the term conscious leaders quite a bit. And I look to
Mhm.
build what I call connectionally intelligent tribes of conscious leaders. But before I realized, before I can do that, I had to define for myself what is conscious leader. What does it mean to be a conscious leader? So I came up with my own 8 criteria, 8 key criterias, right? And number one is a person has to be, I have to be myself, principle centered, value driven, action oriented, results focused, growth minded, uh, servant leader, accountability acceptor, and have a grateful
Mhm.
spirit. So for me, those are the 8 characteristics. That's my true north. Not to say I live that every day, but
Mhm.
that's what on my journey, that's what keeps me in the right path, keeps me guided along the journey. Now, my question for you would be, do you have characteristics that you look for when you're forming connections to individuals that you want to build with, or you're looking to possibly connect and do things with?
I try to focus on each person's talents, because I think every single person is unique on what they can offer to the world.
Yes.
And probably I'm not perfect. I have some gaps. And when I look at to other people, say, how can I bridge my gaps with complementary talents?
Hmm.
There's an interesting study in the UK that says 10% of the population is dyslexic, but 40% of the millionaires are dyslexic.
Wow.
Does it mean that if you're dyslexic, have a better chance to be a millionaire?
Hmm.
No. It means that if you're dyslexic and you recognize your gaps or your talents and where you have opportunity to improve, you partner with the right people. And by
Hmm.
partnering with the right people, you grow faster and you grow better. So for me, when I look at other leaders and other people, say, let's take the most out of that person, and
Yeah.
not just looking at, oh, you have to improve communication. No, no, let's look at what you're great
Hmm.
and where can I apply that talent. And I think that's the most important leadership role, recognizing people's talent and putting that talent to work in the right place, because you can get an amazing person, and you can get, let's get quarterback, Tom Brady.
Yes.
He's an outstanding quarterback, but try to put him in a different position or have a team with Tom Brady's. It's not going to work,
Correct.
because he plays an outstanding role in whatever his talent allows him to do. If you change him to he's a great athlete, it's not going to work. So try to put Michael Phelps to play football. It's not going to work. Try to put Tom Brady to swim. It's not going to work. So recognizing those talents, and somebody saw that guy, Tom Brady or Michael Phelps, say, wow, this guy has to be in a swimming pool. This guy has to be in a field. So that is the role of the leader, looking to the person and seeing talent. And everyone has that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. One of the things that I wanted to make sure, I don't want to make the assumption, but I believe you're in Brazil, correct?
Yes, I am. Right now, I am.
Okay, great. Now I've been to Brazil several times. I believe you're in São Paulo. Uh,
Yes, exactly.
now I haven't been there, but I've been to Rio and I absolutely fell in love with Brazil the first time I went.
Wow.
So much so that I came back and quit my career. with the intention to build a business that I can do, which will allow me to live in Brazil and make my money here in the United States. And I'm
Wow.
still working towards that goal because I'm just so fascinated with the energy, the vibrancy, the culture. I watch Brazilian movies. I love Brazilian food, Brazilian
Uh,
music. I just really love the culture. So I mentioned that because I noticed that um, I just kind of want to get your perspective on how different would you say that businesses in Brazil operate from a context of consciousness compared to businesses in the U.S. Or is there any difference that you see?
I don't think there's a difference. I think there's a delay.
Hmm.
When we look at US and North America and Europe, those companies are probably, I don't know, sometimes 50, sometimes 30 years ahead. So things that are happening here, 100 years ago, we had those huge, big, rich families, Carnegie, Rockefeller. They actually owned most of everything, right?
Yes.
So we still have in Latin America families that own a lot of stuff, and now we start having like startups that popping up and trying to break that monopoly or that oligopoly, or the status quo that's out there. And it's happening. So the same way it happened in the US, and all of a sudden after 20 years, you have Google, you have Apple, you have those companies did not exist 50 years ago.
Correct.
And they just broke, because people are creative, people are expressing their talent, people come up with their purpose and a strong intention, and it changes the world. So I think we, Latin America and Africa, might be maybe a little further behind because of the way they operate. If you look at Russia, they got off, the socialism, and they're probably 50 years behind because they still have those people that get together and they manipulate everything and they control everything, and they're the richest people in the world. So that tend to disappear over time because it's a more distributed wealth, and that's where we have to go. If we think there, and it doesn't mean that there are not no companies that think differently, they're advanced, they're already in the 21st century. There's a company in Central America, they produce filters for people. Instead of buying bottles of water, they actually can filter and have good water to drink anywhere where they live, or where they cook or where they work. And that saves a lot of plastic. Okay, that's the first thing. And what the owner does, Eco Filters, it's called, the company,
Hmm.
he has said, I have enough. The whole profit from the business is distributed across all the employees, and say, well, you
Wow.
don't have a business. You don't, it's not a capitalist business. It's a co-op. It's a cooperative, because that's what a co-op does. You know what REI does? It's one of the largest cooperatives in the US. You buy stuff there, and at the end of the year, they check it out. That's the profit, and they send you a check back, depending on
Hmm.
how much business you had with them. So the wealth is shared. You pay, and then you get something back. And this is not something people are used to. They want to accumulate, and that's past, that's last century, scarcity. I have to accumulate because we're going to run out of something. We live
Yes.
in a more abundant world, and what we want is to have, uh, to look at the things out there that say it will come back to us. Just trust the system. There's so much abundance out there. Wealth is so abundant. And maybe the big question we have to ask people: how much is enough? How
Yes.
much do you have to accumulate on your bank account? Because it's infinite. That number can go up and up and up, and your health can go down and down and down. So where's the balance to keep
Yes.
your healthy life and a, a healthy balance?
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I've learned, I moved to Baltimore City, where I'm located currently, for the
Mhm.
purposes of bringing conscious capitalism principles to real estate development. Because the real estate business
Mhm.
is one of the most, I would say, culturally insensitive businesses. It preys on your ignorance. If you
Yeah,
don't know what you're doing, the realtor, the lender, the contractor, everyone looks to take advantage of the ignorance that people have.
yeah,
So I wanted to make sure that I brought in stakeholder orientation, conscious leadership. I wanted to bring in that model to real estate. Now, in doing that, I found it difficult to bring in capital, particularly into the city, because
Mhm.
of a lot of issues. So now I kind of pivot and I look to kind of build a conscious fund and come back differently. So I say all that to say, I noticed that with all the, as we say, aspirational businesses is out there, whether conscious capitalism, triple bottom line, any
Mhm.
socially conscious, social justice businesses, what do you see the intersection between those businesses now and all this over $1 trillion of social impact capital that's out there? How do you see those businesses and this capital coming together to actually implement conscious business models on a more of a community level? How do you see that kind of
I
taking
it,
place?
it you know, I'm a civil engineer, so what you start talking about just gave me goosebumps. And I see, building constructions as I look at that with a completely different perspective. And I met a company in the US once, and they said after 50 years building more units, we understood that the big change is not building more units, but building better communities.
Mm,
And how they measure that is on crime rate, um, how the schools improve, and how many people go to emergency rooms. So basic basic human needs:
yes.
education, health, and safety. So, and by building communities, they actually controlled not just building more homes to live and people have to drive somewhere, but building a ecosystem where you live, you work, you shop, you socialize. And they actually controlled the commercial real estate to make sure that they have the perfect mix. But what you bring into the table is now, in addition to having the perfect mix, I don't want multiple national brands. I want people engaged with the community, people actually creating value, and the value staying in the community. So that's amazing. And another project I visited in Mexico does the same thing. They were buying old homes and remodeling and selling it back until they discovered that the issue is not upgrading or improving that home to sell it back to the community, is improving the community so that that home does not depreciate again and people abandon the neighborhood. So
Hmm.
creating that ecosystem where the community protects itself against people that are not in favor or creating value or just extracting value. And this is an invitation to everyone who's listening to us, because every dollar you spend, that's a vote towards your future.
Yes.
Depending on where you buy your stuff, that sends a message that you want that business to continue there. But you can say, oh, but I can't just, everything, some places are not, this is cheaper, so I have to go here. Just, I bring you another way to do this. Take 5% of your budget, monthly budget, and say, I'm going to put 5% of my monthly budget on things I want to see here tomorrow.
Hmm.
Next year, go to 10%, 15%. So you move. It's very hard to switch from A to B. But if you move steadily, it will send a message to the businesses that operate in a wrong way or in a way you don't want to adjust themselves. And we keep the change happening. What we can't do is like, oh, I can't do, and there's nothing I can do. We always can do something. And the invitation is for people listening to us, that's what you can do. Just pick 5% of your budget. I'm going to spend in something I want to see here. Something belongs to us, to our community, to our group of people.
I love that. I think that's a great vision. I think that's a great incentive. I think that companies, I would say us as consumers, should definitely adopt that and be much more conscious with our dollars. Absolutely.
Yes.
One of the things I want to do is I want to share with you quickly an experience I had when I first went to Brazil.
Oh,
Now,
yes, please.
I went to Brazil with some gentlemen who were doctors and uh, high-end real estate investors. So they had been to Brazil several times, and this is
Mhm.
my first experience. And they gave me the kind of uh, debrief or briefing to say, listen, when we get there, you're gonna get swarmed by kids asking for money, and whatever you do not give them any money. Just ignore them and walk past them. So now, in my mind, that sound logical because I'm used to coming from DC and I see homeless people and all the time, but I had never seen homeless kids. And we were, just as they said, we were swarmed by maybe 12, 13, but I was shocked by the age. They were like
Mhm.
5 to 9 at the oldest.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. So I couldn't just walk past those kids. So I stopped, engaged, gave them some money. Now I was ridiculed by the people I went with, but just here's what happened. At the time I went, this was when cell phones had just came out, and Brazil was kind of behind on the technology. So they had these older cell phones that the US was not using anymore, but they were charge you $500 rental for this cell phone that would be free in the United States because the
Hmm.
technology had passed. So long story short, I'm on the beach in Rio, and one of the kids who, and I'm as American, I'm being in my American conversation, I had my phone off to the side,
Yeah.
and I saw at the corner of my eye my phone being pushed towards me. There was one of the kids who I had given money to before, and even though he spoke Portuguese and we couldn't speak to each other, he was telling me, keep your phone inside instead of, because someone can run out on the beach. And my
Yeah.
point I'm saying with that is because I cared and showed compassion that
Yes.
I saved myself, which wasn't my intention, $500 because he could have easily taken my phone, ran out of the beach. I wouldn't have caught him, and I would have been
Yeah.
out of much more than the little $20 that I gave out. So that changed my life. That
Mhm.
experience forced me to say I want to do more. I want to
Yeah.
be more mindful, and I want to be more intentional about how I serve the community. And I'm saying all that because that's why I started my company, King Connections, because I realized that in order for me to do that, I had to build relationships with individuals. I had to create a methodology of how to connect with the right people. And so, with that being said, who would you say would be a great connection for you? I'm always curious to say who would be someone that you would want to connect with because I look to make those connections.
Well, here in Brazil, I have two social programs because every time I do a talk, I have part of my time is a contribution to the community I go to talk
Mm,
to college students, to talk to community leaders, to talk to leaders of the company, and do a radio talk. And the financial part, I make a donation to two social NGOs,
mm,
Casa do Zezinho, which is a smaller one, and Gerando Falcões. Gerando Falcões, the guy is Eduardo Lira, and work I do with that guy, with them, is how to help them think systemically instead of asking for money, and money has a higher cost than something else that the company can offer you. For instance, during pandemic, they asked for money to buy internet service so the kids at the favelas could go to have classes.
mm.
I said, you have to go different. A lot of people have good cell phones, and they go to a telecom company and they say, I want to upgrade my phone. What you do with the old one sits at home. Just give it to the phone company, and the phone company will hand it out to those social projects to grant internet access to the kids. But instead of asking for the money, ask for uh, data time,
Mm.
because that's cheaper for them than giving you money.
Yes.
And you include now their customer in that process for the donation. So if the customer
Mm.
donates the phone, your company donates something, and it gets much bigger. So everybody feels that they are doing something to improve somebody else's life. So uh, for me, when we talk about connection, say, how can we get more people to think in a systemic way? How do we
Mm.
get attention and connect those people that are doing some work so that we can actually you know accelerate that upgrade, not just
Yes.
the business upgrade but the life of those people and upgrading too, because we know there's a gap. They started late. It's like, oh, why South America is so behind than Europe and US. We started late here. Why is Africa behind? Because we started late there. So it's a different, we extracted more from those regions before actually starting to settle in and saying, this is where I'm going to stay. This is where I'm going to invest my time in my life. So I, you know, I accept connections where we could accelerate that change. I have to, from top of my mind, I have to go back to you on that question, because I will find some connections and see how we get there, because that's the
Absolutely.
way we go there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so my next question for you, and I kind of think you've already answered it in different ways, but I just want to go right back to that and really focus on this question. Why do you focus on building out a conscious capitalism business model? Why is that important to you?
Because I experienced when I started my own business, I worked in the corporate world for 10 years, and I worked for consulting for 10 years, traveled 20 different countries. And then I got back and say, what I'm going to do now? I'm going to start my business based on what I believe, what I like to do, my values. I started a company. And I noticed the intention to build a business is because I believed I could do better. I could do something better than the options that were out there. So I believed that I had a talent to do that. And because of the talent was true, we were financially successful. The money follows the quality, not the other way around. So if you deliver value, the money will follow. The financial result will follow. And every time we made a wrong decision or a weak decision, it was based on short-term financial gain, or it was based on ego. And if you have that framework clear, purpose, interdependency, I like to say, here's my insight for those who are listening. Think about your cause, C, leadership, L, interdependency, I, and creating a culture, C. If it clicks, you got them all.
I love that. Can you repeat that one more time?
C is the cause, stands for cause.
Yes.
L stands for leadership. I stands for interdependence. That's the ecosystem. And the last C stands for the culture you're creating in favor of all that change. So if it clicked, you were on the right path.
I love that. I'm definitely going to use it, but I'm going to give you credit for that. I'm definitely going to credit you for that. But I love that it's simple, it's profound, and I think that it truly fits definitely the path that I'm on and the connections I'm building. Because you're absolutely right. Everything I look to do is in an interdependent kind of model, and creating a culture is key. Having my cause and then being that effective leader. So for me, I'm I'm right in alignment with that. So
Good.
I click with that, so I say it that
Yes.
way. Now,
Wow.
I'm sorry, will you?
No, I'm so excited that this conversation just takes me to a different level. I will have a hard time to sleep tonight because of all this energy.
Same here. Now, I'm curious, out of all the successes you've had, published books, corporate success in business, uh, building up the conscious business journey, certifying the consultants, what is one thing you would say has brought you the most fulfillment of all the successes you've had in your life?
Well, I think it changes over time because success is measured based on what you know and what you expect. The
Mm,
more you know, the more you expect, right? So I can say for me, success was when I joined in college, and then success when I finished college. Success was when I got my first job. When I managed to quit my first job, I had the courage to do that, to actually look for what I wanted. So success keeps changing as we learn more. So when my daughter was born, I completely changed. You have the responsibility of human life. Now my daughter, was accepted for a, double degree with UPenn and Wharton. Say, wow. And I feel the success on the effort we put on education to get her there. Success is when I see somebody comes back to me and say, I watched your session. I did that. And this is my business. I want to share it with you. Say, oh my God, I don't remember the guy, but the guy knows what I'm talking about. He remembers everything. Success is when somebody that is being invited to join a program for free because a paying member of that program has the right to invite a student, and that student says, before this program, I wanted to move to a big city to find a job and make a lot of money. Now, after I heard you, my town needs me here.
mm,
And that's success is expressed in so many different dimensions and so many different values. And when somebody says that to you, what you just shared with them affected how they're going to live their life and how they're going to impact others. Say, it made my day. I'm
yes.
done. I can come back next time and just start over. Because if you manage to change one person's life on that level, You have accomplished so much. You opened their eyes to something. Don't go where everybody is.
Yes.
Develop where you are. Your town needs you. Don't go look at big cities. They have already a lot of too many people. Where
Mm.
you are, that's a desert. Home desert, food desert, knowledge desert, school desert. There's so many deserts out there.
Yes.
And we don't even notice that. And people need us there to help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, two more questions for you.
Yes.
And these two really are my favorite questions I like to ask. Um, One is, and let me define this, is there a kin connection that you would like to meet? And when I ask that, what I mean, I define a kin connection not based on my company name or my name, but mainly based on a person that who has achieved a level of success financially, socially. You admire them. They're a person that you look to and you get inspired by. And if that person was to add you to their inner circle, it can change your life exponentially. And so for me, example is Magic Johnson. He's
Oh my
someone as a real estate developer, as a connector. He's someone who can fit multiple roles: coach, mentor, advisor, strategic thinking partner, those things. And so I've developed a methodology for identifying how to get to these kin connections. And so when you get there, the leverage is not here. I don't want to be a fan of Magic. I don't want to sit there and just geek at him. I want to say, how can we build together? Because I can bring value to you.
God.
So with that being said, who would be a king
Yeah.
connection for you?
Well, you just touched. I grew up watching Magic Johnson playing. So, and it was like, for me, it was shocking when he just stepped out because he was sick and he's still there. So he's amazing.
Yes.
Uh, the truth is, there's so many people, and one person that actually changed, uh, you know, following politics in the U.S., following and around the world. Obama is a person that the way he expressed himself, he brought unity. He brought so much to the table,
Yes.
and people will. It's 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 before and after Obama.
Right.
People have no idea that yet.
Yes.
As soon as we keep moving forward, we see how absurd is what's coming and how weak was what we had.
Yes.
Because you look at everything that was offered and has brought to the table, and the way it was brought, it was so powerful, so healing. And I think this, for me, this is a person that I'm just unbelievable. I say that what he did is just amazing, amazing. And sometimes I think he can't stand on the sidelines. He
Right.
has to jump back in. We need somebody like him,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, and there are other people out there that say, "Oh, I've done my share." It's not enough, my friend, right?
Absolutely. It's absolutely. It's funny you say Obama, and I like to say, Obama's done, to your point, a lot of great things, regardless of your political affiliation. But one of the most impactful things he's done for the black community is this. And I liken to the analogy of the fleas when you put a fleas in a jar.
Mhm.
And if you put a flea in a jar and you don't put a lid on it, the flea quickly jump out. But when you put a
Yeah.
lid on the jar, the flea will make sure it adjusts to only jumping so high that when you take the lid off, it will never jump up again.
Yeah.
Well, Obama, for black folks around the world, took the lid off and showed us that we can jump as high as we truly aspire, because no one prior
Yes.
to him, we talked about being the president, but no one actually put a plan together and had those kind of operations. I mean, truly focused aspirations of doing that. So
Yes.
that's something powerful he did. And
Yeah.
so my last question for you would be, and this is another one of my favorite questions, because I believe you can learn a lot about a person by the books they read, or in your case, the books they write. Um, what would you recommend as a book, or several books, if that's so you're so inclined, for our listening audience? You'll say that if you really want to take a piece of way of what I'm sharing with you today in this moment, here are some books that I recommend that you go out and purchase and read.
Well, I have to go back. Purpose is something so important, and for me, there was there's a book, quite, I think from last century. It's not what you sell, it's what you stand for, from Royce Pence.
Mm.
That guy, has been talking about purpose forever. Uh, Start with Why from Simon Sinek, and The Infinite Game. That's the game we're playing. We're not limited by the time, the four quarters of a game. Our life, the world will go on if we're here or not.
Yes.
So we need to understand that the game we are playing is not the short-term game. And again, I invite people. That's, unconsciously, my daughter woke me up to that. I was, harvesting seeds from a huge, nice tree, a Brazilian tree, and making seedlings from that tree. And my daughter asked me, "So, how long will it take to be that big?" I say 70 years. And she asked me, "Why are you doing this?" And because sometimes we don't plant trees to make shade on our path.
Mm.
That's for the ones that are coming behind us.
Yes.
So I think, what we have to look into is an infinite game. For me, brings that idea. What is the name of the game you're playing? It's a finite game. It has an end. It has a number. You reached it, or it's an infinite game, because you can always learn more and grow, or you can always be better than yesterday. You don't have to be bigger. Just be better yourself. Improve yourself, and
Mm.
be today the better version from you yesterday. And that applies to business, but it applies to oneself as well. And
Yes.
knowing your talents, knowing your values, what's important to you, that will help you give direction and, express your full potential, and even get you to be a president of a country where people never thought somebody would get there. So, yes, we can. Yes,
Yes.
you can. So that's, for me, I just, it's not what you sell, it's what you stand for. And then, how to improve that message is start with Why from Simon Sinek, and then think about the infinite game, that he put that idea in a different perspective, in a nicer way. So this, for me, those are really inspiring uh, books to read and to share.
Excellent. Excellent. And any closing thoughts or words of wisdom? I mean, that was great words of wisdom. You can end it on that. But I just want to see if you have anything else you want to share, and also please share any contact information that you have, where my listening audience can get in contact with you as well.
uh, I for me, this conversation was just so inspiring. It came from a LinkedIn connection. I was never expecting. I just answer people, be kind and share. Is there anything I can do, and is there more? But having that connection, and we had 15 minutes conversation that could last 3 hours.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
this conversation could go even beyond, but for the sake of the time, you know what I want to share is, look for these kind of conversations. Get
Mm.
inspired by people doing small things. Sometimes you get inspired by the Obama and by Simon Sinek, but sometimes there are people out there talking, doing things that can profoundly change the way you see something. And don't think they're like a guru for the best one for everything. There are small changes that can happen from small, I don't know, insights that you can get everywhere. So be curious and be caring.
I love it. I love it. Well, Thomas, thank you for that. You have any contact information you want to share?
Oh, yes. No, so if anybody is interested in more of this, or more of conversation, or certification programs, or anything that we can offer on this journey, cbjourney.com, that's a website. So, or LinkedIn, you can look at me at LinkedIn. I'm glad to respond. I try to respond to everyone. I have somebody helps me, but I try to always go in and do myself the check in and respond. So, King, thank you so much. This is so exciting. And I know we have already another commitment to have a different conversation.
Absolutely. I look forward to the infinite possibilities. And I like to say, I look forward to really truly building with conscious leaders. And you're definitely the definition of that. And I appreciate your investment of time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone who's listening. And hopefully, this message gets really far and actually helps you find your path. Thank you.
Thank you.